Look at his pose. Look at his pose. Look how he's posed. Oh.
He has like the smuggest face.
Just his head is just screwed on.
It's
There
the
is
it's the
no-
mix of Kevin Spacey and Robert De Niro and a tech support guy.
If he
Okay.
did
No,
it in
no,
an
no, no.
accent, he'd be a literal bobblehead with no neck.
No,
Be a
His-
bobblehead.
I got
his
this.
headset
If we're gonna say he's a mixture of celebrities, he looks like a mixture of Kevin Spacey and Mr. Bean.
Mr. Beenderson. Mr. Beenderson.
Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
I need a good empirical evidence that he has a neck and that he's not Mr. Bean.
What?
Walking on water.
What?
He might have walked on water when nobody was watching. He could have done a miracle then. He probably prayed to the Father. So no, I'm not going to say everybody knows. It doesn't always leave a trace. I won't agree to that. As far as I know, it does, but that's a little too much of a nebulous question.
No, that's fair. Can we at least say that in the event that there is no evidence of a miracle, it is less likely that whatever happened by supernatural means?
We would have no way of knowing with a miracle.
Right. Yeah, we wouldn't have
I don't see
access
any way
to
we
that.
possibly know
Or
that.
less likely.
That's where it gets into faith. I have faith in a lot of things, but I'm not asking my faith to be taught. I think it's a
So you
miracle
need
for an
to
amoeba
tell
to
him
turn
that,
into a
brother.
whale. Now that's a miracle. I don't think it doesn't leave a trace.
Right. Well, sir, the reason that I'm asking you this is because,
Just
I mean,
moves
as we go
fast.
on, if I corner you, I don't want you starting to invent miracles, and especially not miracles that leave no trace, to try
the
and
law
get
of
out of it.
physics.
Do you understand
Like
what I'm
the law
saying?
of
So
nature.
you can have miracles in your
That's
responses. They
so
just can't
bad
be
faith.
invisible
Just masking
miracles that
God
have
with-
no
with his
evidence to
face.
support them. You
Okay,
understand what I mean?
and vice versa. I think
If I
where's the
corner
evidence? So
you-
here they have an amoeba turning to a human.
If I saw you in a dark alley and I pinned you against the wall, you wouldn't squeal, would you?
I want to see the evidence for that. I say there's
That's
none.
great, sir.
You could only
That's great.
squeal
Go
if you
back
agree
5
to
seconds. Go back 5 seconds.
Do you agree to what I've just said? No
Look what he
invisible
did with his
miracles.
face.
Go back 5 seconds.
Yeah, go
You
back,
said?
go back. No, not him, Mr.
What is
Anderson.
he
I'm
like
going to the
touching
timeline.
his lip for? Like, This is it.
I wish he'd pin me up against the wall in the dark
Yeah.
alley corner.
He's thinking like, he's gonna pin me up against the wall. Would I squeal?
Ooh, this is the probability of me having a good afternoon just went up.
Yeah,
Well, I don't-
he's having a big thonk about where the hell this is going.
His
Having
mind
a
is so
thonk,
gone.
dude.
Big thonk.
Okay,
Think where's the evidence? So here they have an amoeba turning to a human. I want to see the evidence for that.
Look at him.
I
Look
say
at him.
there's
That's
none.
great, sir. That's great, sir. Now, do you agree to my? Do you agree to what I've just said? No invisible
far-
miracles.
As far as I understand it, yes, I do.
Okay. All right. So we'll add that to the October 13th
Amen.
protocol. Is that fair?
Okay.
Okay.
The what?
Hi.
he said that this
Don't you
debate
know about
took
the
place
October
on
13th protocol?
the October 13th protocol is because this debate took place on October 13th. So he's trying to say that if anybody uses whatever this argument is he's trying to present against presuppositionalism, they can call the anti-presup argument the October 13th protocol. I
Oh my
believe.
god, this guy is so cringe. He's so
But all
cheap.
he's
Yeah.
saying, he said that we agree that God can't do invisible miracles. Do you agree with that? So then anytime you appeal to any miracle, I can say, hey, look, you agreed. Ah, you agreed. I get to sue you now. Ah. That's all it is. It's you. I want you to sign your name here. Sign your name on the dotted line, master. Yes.
Now here's the last thing I want to talk about with regards to presuppositions. You believe that the world around you makes sense and behaves consistently, right?
Generally, we have weather patterns that are not, go crazy and earthquakes and things we have no control over and can't even predict. So as generally, yes, it predicts. I think it generally follows the laws of gravity and physics. Correct. Go ahead.
And you believe the sun's going to come up tomorrow,
Mhm.
right? I mean, philosophers say that we can't prove that logically, but we assume
Actually,
it. We believe it.
Technically, the sun doesn't come up. We turn and it comes into our vision. So, okay, yes. I think the Earth is turning, and the sun's going to come into our vision tomorrow morning about 6:25 in my
How do
latitude.
you know? You can't possibly
Right.
know. Both of them are
Okay.
wrong.
And that is something that we presume, right?
Is Emmanuel
Without
Jones
evidence.
a
We
theistic
have that shared
evolutionist?
presumption, right?
Both of them are wrong.
Right, we've had thousands of years of observation of this happen.
Okay. Oh, they're both wrong. What's
Both
going
of
on?
them are wrong. because you can't possibly know if the sun is gonna. The sun never did not come up
Oh,
for
that
us
might
to
be
know
true.
that it's possible for it to not come up. So it is possible for it to not come up, but we
assume
don't
that
know
it's-
if it's
that's-
possible or not.
Well,
Yeah, so
okay. So here's the thing. Like, we know the sun will come up because it did yesterday. So your
That's not
argument
actual
is
evidence.
invalid.
Right.
what that doesn't.
It's assuming the regularity
The thing
of
in
nature,
question.
it's begging the question, assuming the regularity of nature, which is
So
not
if
being
I
proven.
breathe,
It's showing an
if I
effect
breathe
and saying,
yesterday-
"Oh, the cause." But okay, how the cause?
Okay, atheist,
more
atheist
facts.
Westford. Okay, if I breathed yesterday, does it mean I'll breathe tomorrow?
Presumably, but I
No,
don't
I
accept
don't.
that you could die in your sleep because you didn't die in your sleep yesterday, Nadim. You could be
But we
beheaded
presume-
in Lebanon for making too much spicy Islamist jokes, but that's different than that's not in question right now, and that's just an axiom I have either way.
Okay, sorry, I'm just convinced. Okay, that just convinced me, honestly.
Yeah. It's like, you know, how do we have logic without the laws of logic and the transcendentals? Well, you know, we have it. So,
But the
Okay, let's continue.
Right.
Right. We agree that in general the past resembles the future. The way things are working right now is the way they're going to work in the future, and is the way that they're going to work in the past, unless, of course, there's a miracle.
unless
And if that happens, then
And you remember, you
you
promised.
can do that, but you just have to tell me how things were different and why they worked that way. There?
it didn't
Well, it
even
may not be a
start
miracle.
yet.
There was all of a sudden all the buildings in Hiroshima fell down, and that was not a miracle. That was an atomic bomb. It was man doing that. So they were used to getting up every morning and seeing their
feel like he needs
window
a
in there
stogie
in
in his
place.
mouth.
Now all of a sudden everything's gone. So again, I think the question's a little nebulous, but I'll give you a qualified yes. Go ahead.
I really want his actions
Well,
to be
sir,
more
I'd
like
like a
Sean
hard
Connery.
yes. And I'd put it to you that that the bomb in
Let's do
Hiroshima,
this.
although it may have been
Whatever
unexpected
it is,
from
he's
the
doing the mewing
perspective
thing.
of the residents there, was not something that was unexpected by science, right? The
What?
laws of physics applying in that situation were the same as the ones today, right?
You can't. You're assuming that. Just skeptic here says one of the guys in Jim Bob's server made a good argument that the past doesn't exist in physicalism. I'd like to see that argument. I agree that they cannot empirically, under physicalism and empiricism, prove that the past exists. They cannot hold it in their hands, and they cannot put it under a microscope. They cannot examine the past. They assume the past. It's an axiom.
Yeah.
It's a fairy tale. The past is a fairy tale in physicalism.
yeah. I think it was Plato and I think it was Plato and Caesar are like two of the biggest ones. It's like we don't have any firsthand works from them. We only have like one or two incomplete manuscripts attributed to them, and then some work from people that either claim that they're copying from him or claim that they studied under him. Yeah, like Plato specifically, I think was one of the big ones.
I believe our earliest copies of Plato that we have that are existent go back to like Middle Ages, like the 12, 13, 1400s, something like that. Like we don't have ancient copies from antiquity.
Yeah. But there's
like
so much stuff like that that they'll just take on faith because that's what they've been taught in schools. But going into it, like they have to basically deny that history can be inferred from evidence and accounts given to us unless it completely fits their presuppositions and worldview.
What were we going to say, Brother June?
I was gonna say, like, it isn't like the earliest writings we have of Caesar, like almost like 400, 600 years after him, something like that.
Yeah, that was.
Doubt it. I can't say specifically on that one.
I think I remember seeing something like that, but I can't.
Yeah, it's fairly common in a lot of, especially antiquity, Roman history for us to only have like second or third hand knowledge of stuff, because it's almost exclusively written down in any sort of hard form by either monuments or that have been subject to natural conditions for centuries, or biased historians like decades after the fact.
Yeah, and because the standard of history and historicity for most things, especially like secular or even any religion other than Christianity, is like, oh, it's okay that we don't have anything that's until 1400 years, 1500 years, 2000 years later. We can trust it because they trusted it and they probably had copies they copied it from. But if the Gospels are written 40 years after Jesus Christ died and ascended and resurrected, then they're unreliable. They wrote it so much later than the events happened. They can't trust it. But it's so much more, has so much more veracity than all the other claims that they just, oh yeah, of course those are true. Of course Plato is a real person.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's a double standard.
Yeah, like for like Roman historical stuff, what'll most often happen is we'll have like two separate accounts, each from a different bias. And so they'll have some contradictions, but they'll mostly agree on the important stuff. And so that's how we can kind of discern the actual occurrences. But as far as like the gospel, we have 4 different accounts of it, but they don't trust any of it.
Right. Or like that one Muslim on my Why I Left Christianity video, he was saying, oh, John is the most explicit gospel that talks about Jesus Christ being divine. So obviously that one can't be true. And scholars somehow say that it's not a trustworthy gospel. So all the other gospels don't claim that Jesus Christ is divine, even though I'm reading through Matthew right now. And almost every chapter are multiple claims, or at least one claim of Jesus Christ being divine. It happens all the time. I don't know where.
Oh yeah, it's a lot more explicit in John, but all of them have them.
Right. So let's continue.
What distinction is saying is that they're presupposing the sun will rise tomorrow. That's against
right. Let me read it real quick. So distinction is saying, I don't see how that line of argumentation that empiricism, atheist materialistic worldview cannot account for the past under their starting position. He's saying that proving that to them, he doesn't see how that gets somebody closer to God or the church. Pointing out that the past isn't empirically provable doesn't get them closer to the church or God, or that you actually know that the sun will rise tomorrow. Let's read Jordan, who's a Chad. I think a lot of us here know Jordan or have interacted with him.
I don't know who that is, man.
He's a pretty cool guy. So what do you mean that empiricists, materialists, physicalists can't account for the past? If all you believe is that everything is material, matter in motion, then it follows that what you call the past is physical. Meaning what we call the past would be a result of chemical reactions in the brain in the present. You don't have access to anything other than chemicals flowing in the present. Therefore, you have no access to the past. You can't account for it. Any projection you make is present chemicals and an illusion. Therefore, you can't make any claim about anything in the past being true. Same goes for the future. What you think should be the case already is. You fall into solipsism. I don't think it's. I think it's a pretty killer argument, and I've never heard an atheist really make a good argument against it, or being like, the atheist argument typically is, well, if I can't just assume these things as an axiom, then how do I have to be a solipsist? So to not fall into shep, I assume all these things and I don't question them. So why are you making me question them? Maybe my brain hurt. So they openly admit that they don't have a justification, that you can't argue it, and that it's just a heuristic, a pragmatic thing. Oh, he's just as scared as I am. He's just as scared as I am.
Well, that's kind of been just axioms in general. That was kind of the point of them, is here's this thing that we're not going to question, that I take as my fundamental starting point.
Right. And to distinction, I wouldn't say that pointing out these obvious flaws, or not obvious to the empiricist, but to us, it becomes pretty apparent when you challenge them on this, and they just say buzzwords like, oh, it's an emergent property. It's axiom. It's like, well, okay, can you explain what those are? No, don't make me do that. It's about trying to save them out of the pit of their. What are you doing, Nadim? Oh, well,
Oh
it's trying to
no.
save them out of the pit of their illogical insanity, just an insane, retarded position. So it's trying to pull them out of that. It's not a positive claim about the church or anything like that. Like Omar says, it's not meant to convert people to the church to show the logical consequence of physicalism. Dustin
Yeah.
says, the arguments are to show the internal contradictions or things you want granted without justification, which logically carried out destroy the possibility of knowledge. Yeah, and if you can be ad hoc, if you say, I don't have to prove those things, I just assume that it's the case, well, then I just assume that God is the case. I just assume that orthodoxy is true. I'm using your own standard. Can you prove that it's not true? Granted that if we allow that we can just go, I can just say it's true because that's what you're doing, then all of a sudden we don't have access to knowledge. We can't differentiate between our claims. That's why being ad hoc, you immediately fall apart.
Yeah, it's to show them how hilariously, honestly stupid their worldview is, and
Right.
that carrying it out, there's basically no possibility for argumentation. Like the whole exercise is completely masturbatory, if you will. And you also, like, in order to change somebody's mind, you generally have to prove to them that what they already have it set on is false.
Right.
So,
and now that
it's-
there's like a power vacuum of beliefs, of faith in their mind, then you can hope to bring them to the truth. But if they're
Yeah.
holding on to something that's so obviously false and contradictory and self-defeating, if you take that out of their hands, then you hope that you can bring them to the fold of the truth. Distinction says that's true regardless of your worldview. Nobody has access to the past. I agree. I don't think physicalists deny that the past exists only in their brain. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of them. I'm sure some of them would say that the past exists because I lived it. It had to happen. And some would probably be more honest and consistent and say it's only in their brain. And there's tons of things where they're like, well, I don't believe that. I don't say that. But the argument's trying to show them the logical consequences of their starting positions. If everything is physical, they can't just say it's an emergent property, so therefore it's not physical. If everything's physical, then it can't be emergency switch to account for this, to special plead.
yeah, there's a kind of a recurring issue with people wanting to argue about worldviews and positions, but not ever, actually questioning and exploring the logical conclusions of their own positions and worldview.
Distinction's asking is if this argument has ever made this person go, oh, I actually can't prove yesterday existed, as like a eureka point. Probably, but I actually haven't seen it. This argument, I think, I've never seen an atheist come up with a good answer, but it just shows like the stubbornness and the hard-heartedness of going, well, I don't have to. I don't have to. It's just, yeah. Again, if these people deny logic exists and deny logical consequences of positions, then logic can only pull them out so far because
But
it's a hard issue.
I'm sorry, but as long as you put your hand like this, then every argument you give is right. Like
Right.
anything
If you act
say is
condescending,
correct.
like you're talking to this guy who's 3 times your age, if you talk to him like a child, then he must become your child.
Yes.
Logic.
Yes, will to power it, just like we will to power the octopus into the talking unicorn.
Well, we saw that Ras has the physical evidence of the unicorn. Let's continue on.
Yeah,
So you agree with me that the laws of physics apply the same now as they do in the future and the same as they do in the past, subject to our discussion with respect to miracles, right?
Right. God's able to, he's not bound by them. We
Don't
are
grant
bound
him
by
this.
those
Don't
laws.
grant
Yes.
him it.
Right.
That's your
And
mistake.
if God is going to intercede, he's going to do so subject to the rules we've just discussed, right?